Hi, this is Esateys.
And this is Rafael, and welcome back to Relationships Done Different. How are you doing today,
Eh,
Esatees?
Hey, I wanted to share something with you all that are listening because several of you have asked and many of you have sent me lots of loving support. I had surgery about almost 2 weeks ago on my knee for a double torn meniscus, and I am doing awesome. I'm going back for my post op appointment today, and pretty soon I will be back to being able to do the things that I used to do. I had it done because I used to be a runner and I exercise way too much according to my body, and it kind of wore out there. So we got it repaired, and hopefully I'll be back to doing marathons. Not really. I'm not going to do running. I'm not pushing the envelope, but
So, did you get any messages? Did you get any insights from this whole experience?
yes, really listen to your body. I'm not good at that. I'm good at that, except sometimes I do push my body farther than it ought to be.
Well, what would you have done differently?
Probably when I tore it the first time in 2015, I wouldn't have continued to do things when I was in so much pain, like walking on the treadmill as hard as I did and as fast as I did.
Okay, so we've just changed the name of the podcast to Confessions by
By
Esatees,
Esatees.
What Not to Do.
That's right.
But the good news is she's standing here in front of the microphone and she's doing great. So
Yeah, these we ought to
at
just.
least she's
You know what?
honest.
I have
You're
a great
honest. That's
idea.
cool.
I have a good idea. We could just create little things in this podcast that are called moments of transparency, and we could just share our personal stuff like this. What do you guys think of that? You think that would have any value if we shared more of our own things that we go through? Am I really saying this?
Yeah.
Uh, anyway, if you do,
She's
then
going to do this. I don't know about me.
anyway, if you think that's a great idea, or if you could find value in it, then let me know. Send me an email at isatees@isatees.com, or write down there in the comments below, or send me a smoke signal, whatever.
or or anybody here who wants to put in the comments any of their transparent moments, that would be awesome, and
That's a
share
great
it with
idea.
everybody.
See, we only hide what it is that we are fearful about. And that actually takes us into our subject today really beautifully. What an awesome segue, and I didn't even know it.
That's right. The universe is always
My
conspiring.
goodness. So today we're talking about the biggest fear in any relationship. And the reason that we don't really speak about what's going on with us generally is because we're afraid, because we're afraid that people will judge us. We're afraid that we're going to look weak or something like that. This is especially true of those of you that are teachers or that hold a space of authority in your work, even in your personal relationship, your home, with your children, whatever. When I was growing up, my mother, we are all stunned, actually. I have 10 brothers and sisters. Seven of them are true blood brothers and others and sisters, and four of them were adopted. And another moment of transparency. At any rate, so what happened? You wanted to
You've
say,
actually said that a lot before.
oh, I
Okay.
did. Shoot, I thought I was just saying something new.
But that's okay. We appreciate the
Okay, we'll
transparency.
talk about memory later. Okay, so the point is that when I was growing up, I didn't even think about asking my mother things. And I didn't really, apparently, none of us children did that, because the only thing we knew about our mom was that she was adopted. And I think her adopted mother died when she was like 13 or something like that. To this day, we don't know anything. And we all talk about that, and it's because we didn't know what we didn't know. You've heard me say that. But more importantly, she, I am sure, was afraid to really expose the things that were going on in her life. So where is the fear in your relationship? Just take a moment right now. And what do you think your biggest fear is? I'm going to pause for a moment for you to think about that. And this can be with a significant other. It could be with someone at work. It can be with any relationship at all. So take, 10 seconds and think about that. What's the first thing that comes to you? Don't modify it. Okay. So most people will come up with things like, well, the first thing is that they say, I'm afraid. But a lot of times people say they don't know what they're afraid of. But let me tell you what one of the main core fears in people is, and that is not being loved. And if we take that out a little bit, that means that we are not approved of. People don't, if people don't approve of us, if people look at us with judgment, if people have a thought that how we be, what we're doing, what we're saying, what we're thinking, how we look is different than what they think it ought to be, and they judge us, 99% of the people are going to make that personal and think that they're messed up.
Well, that goes to if you knew who I really was, you wouldn't love me.
Exactly, exactly. So the biggest fear is not being loved. And I'm sure that there's probably more than one person listening saying, look, I don't care whether my boss loves me or not. That's not what it is that's important to me. But I will tell you that underneath, this is a core survival issue that goes on in most people. So if you can't really recognize it with someone that came to your mind, like a boss or someone else, then think about somebody that's significant to you. Maybe it's your parents, maybe it's your children, maybe it is the person that you're living with. The bottom line is we as human beings want to feel loved and lovable. So our biggest fear is not being accepted, not being loved. And what we do as a result of that is we malleate ourselves into whatever it is that we think that somebody else is going to approve of. And this is pretty much across the board, not absolute, but there's a lot of this that occurs. Remember, I've been coaching for a whole bunch of years. And what I see is that, especially in relationships, and it doesn't matter if it's relationship with a significant other or whether it's like at work and even with your children, what we do is we put on the front or we put on the face or the way of being that we think is going to be most accepted and most acceptable. So, for the example, back to my mom never brought anything up, and when we asked her anything, she had very brief short answers because apparently she had a lot of personal issue with exposing herself to be because she wasn't looking like a certain way that maybe we thought she ought to look like. Is that anywhere in your life? Do you ever go back and visit your parents, for those of you that are a little older, and suddenly you notice that here you are, you might be the CEO of a big company. You're doing awesome in your life. And you go back and with your parents, you suddenly become 7 years old. Suddenly you are, it's amazing to me when I see this with people. And yet I've seen myself do this a long time ago. My parents are way gone, but it is something that happens. Another thing is, here's a good one. You are feeling really upset with your partner, and so you're not even speaking to them, and you're really grumpy and you're depressed and you're hanging a face and all this stuff is going on, and then somebody calls, and before you're speaking to your partner like, yeah, whatever, I don't even want to talk about it. So the phone rings, bing bing bing, and they say hello.
Hello there.
Hi, it's so great to hear from you. Suddenly you go from a really incredibly depressed sounding, mournful person to a chipper, how are you kind of
Who is
person.
this person?
I mean, you know what's really powerful about this is that when you realize that you have the ability to, boom, shift instantly, that means that you have the ability to shift instantly by choice whenever you want. When you recognize that, people will say, I can't help myself. I just really feel that way. Well, that's not true. What's true is that you can shift. So when you start looking at your biggest fear, you can master that fear by shifting out of your fear. You can change the way that you think about it, for example. And you can and the minute you change the way you think about it is the minute that you're going to be acting different. Another thing that you can do that's very simple, but not really easy sometimes, is to stand up, put your shoulders back, put your chin up, take a really deep breath, and look forward like a true master. Get into that Superman stance, or that performance stance where your hands are on your
Batman.
hip. Well, you could
The
say,
Batman stance.
yeah, whatever you call it. It's amazing what happens when you stand that way. Everything in your body, everything in your psyche really, really shifts. What you will notice when you kind of realize you could do that is how attached you are to really putting on a show and acting like a certain way. You want to, on some level, punish or get a message across to your partner by acting like you're really scared. So you're looking troubled. Tell me what's going
Well,
on
no,
in your
keep
mind.
going. I don't want to interrupt you. I'll get into this in a minute.
Okay, so the bottom line here is I know that I'm talking about lots of different things at once. So I want you to f- do your best to follow me because there's several points I'm making. One is that when you are afraid, you have the ability to change that. You can change it by changing your thought process. You can change it by going inside your body, just sitting there, closing your eyes and breathe into your body and feel where the fear is in your body. Where is it showing up? Is your belly tight? Is your jaw clenched? And see where it's physically being a messenger for you. And just notice that. Another thing that you can do when you're fearful is to literally go to the breath and breathe in through your nose very, very slowly to the count of 5. Hold it at the top of your head or in between your eyebrows for the count of 5, and then exhale to the count of 5 very slowly through your mouth. If you repeat that cycle 5 times, you will find that everything will shift for you. So, those are just a couple little key things you can do when that fear is up. The other thing is that you can bring into your conscious awareness that fear is always a protection mechanism. It's always us trying to protect ourselves from something that we feel is threatening. In the case, as we've been speaking about so far right now, is that the fear is that we are not going to be accepted for what it is that is actually going on.
So acceptance is really the key in my view. And the one thing that I think is easier said than done is being aware when, and I loved what you said about morphing. We morph into who we think we have to be, and we do that kind of like instantaneously. So the real key to this whole thing is becoming aware when you become something or someone else, some just to be accepted. I'm talking to my kid, and I do this like with my son who's 40 years old. I won't talk to him exactly the way I'll talk to Esateys because there's a different hearing. So I want to be heard, and I want to get across my message, and I'm tailoring it to the person to whom I'm speaking.
Okay, I thought I heard you say that you speak to him exactly the same way you speak to
No,
me.
not exactly the same. Totally different because I'm afraid he won't accept or be able to hear what it is that I know you would be able to hear.
Transparency moment, transparency moment.
Andrew, if you're listening.
So the awareness about this is really cool. If you made your own personal development and your own self awareness your number one job, your number one priority in your life, did you know that every other part of your life would shift? I mean, every single part. That means your job, your money, your income, your health, your everything would be different because you would start to better understand who you are, how you work. This has been my life mission, is to better understand the human condition. And because of that, it's really helped me be able to say, oh, that's just an old recycled program. Oh, that's just a thought process I got when I was 6 or 10 or whatever. And I don't have to let it own me today, which is where all these things come from.
So we're going to have to take a quick break right now. But right just before we do, what I wanted to say is just think about this. What if everything that I do, I am I'm okay with, and I don't have to censor it? What if I don't have to censor anything?
That
And I know I just jumped to the last segment of our show, but it just seems like it's so important because we're just living. Our energy is over with the other person because we want to feel accepted.
good statement and really true.
Okay, Esateys, give us your second major
There's
insight here.
there's a lot of them, but we'll just do two today. So another one is abandonment.
Oh,
We're really, really innately frightened of being alone. We are tribal by nature. And when we are afraid of being alone, we are frightened in a way that, again, makes us morph, makes us become what we think other people really think we ought to be. In other words, if we, I've seen this so much in relationships that uh, it happens quite a bit with women, but it also happens with men as well. Not as much, at least not in my experience. And what I see occurring is that women will live their life trying to be what they think their partner or society or whomever thinks they ought to be. So they do their very best to look the best, to be the thinnest or the most beautiful, the firmest, uh, all these really core things so they can be attractive because they think that the attraction factor is going to make them whole and complete and loved and lovable. But what happens is that women, especially when they're in relationships, they will shift themselves to however it is they think their partner would like them to be, and because of that they lose themselves. They lose their own personal identity. They lose their own self empowerment. They find that it does not work well. And then they're so trapped in the relationship and so petrified because they don't know who they are. They don't have any self empowerment to pick up and, move along. Instead, they stay in sometimes a really intolerable experience. And that happens at work too. I work with a lot of business people and they're in intolerable in their mind work situations, and yet they stay there because they're afraid of starting over. They're afraid of being left. They're afraid of being alone. They're afraid of their money. I mean, fear is just a really big, prominent thing that dominates and controls our life.
so what I'm seeing as a theme here is we're in a relationship where our energy, as I said before, is over there with the other person because we want them to love us, accept us, any of those kind of things. And it all comes back to the fact that we don't really love ourselves, that we don't believe we're worthy of of anything that they have to give, and we have to do something to make us more attractive.
That's true. And we think we're not okay the way we are. So if as you're listening to this, just be dead straight honest with you because nobody's going to give you a test later. The question I invite you to ask yourself is there any part of you that you would like to be different than it is? Any part of your body, any part of the way you speak, any part of the way you live, any part of anything? I'm pretty sure that 100% of you, if you're straight honest, can look at some area of your life that you would like to have be different. And if it looks like it's over there, it always stems from inside. So that means that there's something that we don't feel whole, complete, and enough about. Therefore, we are destined to live in a state of fear. And that's what I call the game called life. The game called life is about recognizing that we have a core basis of fear, and that's the role, or that's the way we're playing it out, and yet who we really are is the love, which is totally enough. You can't do anything to make that any more awesome. And when I say the love, I'm talking about spirit, God, whatever your word is for what you would call your creator or source point or whatever. So the bottom line to this is that the only way, truly, in my experience, to get to a place of having this abandonment issue be handled, or the fear of not being loved,
Okay.
which stems right, abandonment stems right from that. So when we are in a place where we are feeling this way, the only way I have had any results that have been valuable and workable and permanent is to go within. Go within and know that part of you. I call it the invisible you. Know the invisible you that's perfect as it is. And when you spend more time, maybe the best idea is to do that through meditation. Maybe it's about working with somebody that can help you unravel the pieces where you have blocks and fears that are creating your discomfort.
We're doing tapping EFT.
Yeah,
Would be very helpful
EFT
for that.
is very good. There's a lot of things. The processes that I gave you at the beginning of this podcast, those are really, really powerful. And when you are recognizing that this is something that's going to be really, really helpful, then I encourage you to take action. Take action, people. It's awesome that you're listening to these podcasts. I'm just so excited and and in gratitude that you're doing so, because it helps you and it helps the world. But knowledge is impotent without action. Knowledge is impotent without action. So that means that you've got to act on these things that you're hearing here. You've got to take some steps to do something different, because you will never have the life that you truly love if you're not doing something to shift it. That's your part. It's available to you. You're learning things, you're hearing things, you're knowing things. But if you don't do something with them and you keep on living the old pattern and the old beliefs are really dominating your life, then you're going to have the same things come over and over and over. So the biggest fear is really, here's the big drum roll bottom line as we start to bring this up, blah, 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 is that we are afraid of who we truly are.
We're afraid of the magnificence of who we truly are.
Absolutely. And in fact, I'd like to read something from Marianne Williamson real quick. So you talk while I quick get that, because I don't have it completely memorized.
Okay, so what I wanted to say is, given what Esateys was just saying about the impotence of inaction, and in fact, is pick one thing that you've heard today that really sticks out for you. For example, a takeaway. Uh, Maybe it's the way you are in a particular relationship that struck home. Maybe it's about quivering when you see people and not putting your shoulders back, or any of those things. And make a commitment to take one of these takeaways and take action and do something different in your life. I think that will make a huge, huge difference.
You don't have to think it, it's an absolute truth. It will.
Because we do a lot of retreats, and a lot of events, and the events are always awesome, and they're always the energy of them are great. But when we leave that energy of the event, or the place where we're at, we tend to come back to where we are, and it's really difficult without a follow through or something to do different that will make a change in your life. So really, really suggest you think about that and follow through with that.
I think that's great, Raphael. And it is why we always, whatever it is that we do, we have a plan of action incorporated into that. So you pull it together and you have your own system, your own stepping stones of what you're going to do. Whether you do it or not, that's up to you. But then we have all these other things that we provide for people to help them stay accountable.
And the best way to do that is while if you're here, you're listening right now, don't write it on a piece of, scrap paper that you have around your desk or wherever you are. Get yourself a book, make it a journal, and have those things, because I guarantee you, if it's not 100% right on in your forefront of your awareness, it'll be forgotten. But if it's written, you'll come back to it, and when you're exactly ready, when you're ready for it, it will it will really shine and help you open up a piece of your life that you otherwise haven't seen.
Well, you can get like a journal and make it your podcast journal. Now, some people listen to podcasts while they're driving and they're doing other things, so you may not be able to do it right in that moment. But if you're really committed to having the life that you love to live, then have it with you and stop and just take a couple of moments when you get to wherever it is that you're going or you get home. Make a point of that. So I want to read this to you because it's, and you can Google this, Marianne Williamson's Our Deepest Fear. Our deepest fear is not that we are inadequate. Our deepest fear is that we are powerful beyond measure. It is our light, not our darkness, that most frightens us. We ask ourselves, who am I to be brilliant, gorgeous, talented, fabulous? Actually, who are you not to be? You are a child of God. Your playing small does not serve the world. There is nothing enlightened about shrinking so that other people won't feel insecure around you. We are all meant to shine as children do. We were born to make manifest the glory of God that is within us. It's not just in some of us, it's in everyone. And as we let our own light shine, we unconsciously give other people permission to do the same. As we are liberated from our own fear, our presence automatically liberates others.
That is so powerful.
I love that.
The hair on my arms was just, I've heard this many times. It was just standing up. It was just it just so powerful. Wow, we
I
could really
really
get that.
I really recommend that you get that printed and read it every day because the biggest fear in relationship is not really any of the things that I've said, and it kind of looks like that, but the biggest fear is the one that I just read about. And that's the important one to put your focus on.
And as we've said often in our relationship work, it's not about what's out there. It always starts with you.
Yeah.
Everything from
Come
you.
to a retreat and see what it is we're speaking about. It would be so awesome to meet you. It would be so powerful to see you come in one state of energy and walk out like a person that is so far beyond anything you could have ever dreamed or imagined. This happens every single time. I just have this yearning to be with you and to work with you.
It's really cool.
Oh,
Okay, thank you, Esateys. That Marianne Williamson just took me over the edge. So now we're going to go to the segment of our show of Ask E. And we have a question from Claire, who lives in New Hampshire. In your last podcast, which was Should I Stay or Should I Go, you talked about making the big decision. I've been thinking about it all week. It's such a big decision. I feel trapped, but I'm just too scared to move forward on my own. What advice do you have for me?
when you reach a place like that, Claire, what's important is that you get support. Because one of the things that we actually just spoke about is going on. First of all, the fear of abandonment, being alone, being left alone, or having to do things on our own really comes up big for people. So they will tolerate things that are not necessary because they don't believe in themselves. It's that greatest fear of not understanding, knowing who you really are. So, what is going to really be important is for you to get support. And I know that there are many coaches and people out there in the world that that can be supportive to you. I'm obviously here. I coach, we do retreats. We have many programs that can be very, very supportive for you. And I've coached people that were committed to leaving their relationship. And after they did coaching, they realized that they didn't really need to leave the relationship. What they needed was a headset reset. And for others, people then came to me and they were trying to work it out, and they found out that, oh my gosh, I'm not really aligned. I've been morphing myself all the time, and it's not who I am, and it's not who I want to be. And they make a different decision. So it's really about you having the support that you personally need, so you can be clear in your decision making process, and then be supported in making that transition be as easy as possible. And that is possible. Claire, I really want to support you in getting in touch with somebody that can help you, because doing it alone right now, I think it's probably a little more than you're up for.
Two things. I Once again, I love the idea of, or the concept of morphing to be someone you're not. And just, if you get anything out of this show today, just consider and be aware of where you are in any of your relationships where you're morphed, where you're not who you really are. That's really powerful. And I think that will really go a long, long way.